He's making his investments talk. Business standard. He's making plans for an early retirement. Business standard. She'll soon be quoted on the front page. Business standard. He's making his investments talk. Business standard. He's making plans for an early retirement. Business standard. She'll soon be quoted on the front page. Business standard. He's making his investments talk. Business standard. He's making plans for an early retirement. Business standard. She'll soon be quoted on the front page. Business standard. He's making his investments talk. Business standard. He's making plans for an early retirement. Business standard. She'll soon be quoted on the front page. Business standard. He's making his investments talk. Business standard. He's making plans for an early retirement. Business standard. she'll soon be quoted on the front page. Business Standard. He's making his investments talk. Business Standard. He's making plans for an early retirement. Business Standard.
Customers want decisions fast. You need them to be accurate. Delivering both requires reliable, timely insights. At a time when disruption is high, the future is unpredictable, and everything is digital, organizations must make real-time risk decisions to approve loans in an instant. Otherwise, customers won't just be frustrated, they'll take their business elsewhere. It's time we reimagine how we make decisions. Welcome to redefined risk modeling and decision-making for a digital era. Taking loan requests from application to approved automatically without increasing risk to create a world-class customer experience. How do we do it? A comprehensive decisioning platform that supports the full analytics lifecycle, from data preparation to model development, validation, deployment, decisioning, and monitoring. Create open, explainable models in a well-managed and controlled environment using AI and machine learning. The result is your workflow gets simpler. You make faster decisions with better data and rest easier knowing governance and auditability are ensured. For you, SaaS works behind the scenes to make the decision process faster with less risk. For your customer, the loan application is seamless, fast, and efficient. Make the right decision with less risk in every moment.
Good afternoon. We are now halfway in the Business Standard Presents De-Risking the Risk Business in association with SAS. In the previous two sessions, we have discussed various aspects of risk management in the banking sector. And today is the last webinar on banking with technology leaders on the criticality of cloud. Two more sessions to go, which will be on the insurance sector. These will be live as today on bs-bfsiriskmanagement.com. And while you're watching today's session, please type your questions for the panelists in the box given. We will be asking a select few towards the end of the discussion. Thank you for being with us. Some of you are also watching this on Business Standards social media, but please don't send any questions there. We will not be able to take questions sent anywhere apart from the website. May I now request our consulting editor, Tamal Bandyopadhyay, to take over and start the session.
Hi, good afternoon and very warm, literally in Mumbai, very warm welcome to the third session, Business Standards 5-part series, De-Risking the Risk Business. This is the last session on banking and it's very interesting one, even though a bit technical, because the 5-letter word cloud, I think many of you will feel that what is there, it's what is there. So let's try to make it interesting and interactive. Cloud, getting cloud right, key to the risk management. So cloud is no more a choice, it's a sort of destination for all banks. What is cloud? Before we get into all these details, let's introduce the panelists. We can't have a better panel than this. We have Ramesh Lakshmi Narayanan, who's the CIO, Chief Information Officer of HDFC Bank. Ramesh, welcome. We had Akhil Handa, Head of FinTech and New Initiative of at Bank of Baroda. Both HDFC and Bank of Baroda, Akhil on the screen now. It was 1 second late. So both HDFC and Bank of Baroda from the private and public sector, they're known for various tech initiatives. And then there are two other banks from the private sector, one old and one new. We don't know much about that tech initiative. It is not much discussed. And that's why they are here to tell us. G. Shankaran, again, CIO of City Union Bank, old private bank. Yeah, Shankaran. And Murli Rao, Chief CTO of DCB, Chief Technology Officer. So rest of them are CIO, the two of them are CIO, one is CTO, and one is Head of FinTech and New Initiative. And last but not the least, and Martin Rocha, good morning. Martin is joining us from Portugal. He is the Global Director, Head of Risk in Banking Solution in SAS. Martin, you are a sort of knowledge partner. So we will hear from you the global experience and what India can do, the challenges and the opportunities in cloud. Well, so here we go. In India, and then probably everywhere else in the world, if you ask any customer that where do you bank, meaning which branch do you go, how long it takes, the person, depending on the gender, will show either his pocket or her bag, because that's it, that's my bank, the mobile phone. And if you ask a banker, where is your data storage happening, which geography or which suburb of Mumbai and all, you'd look at you and say, oh, it's on cloud. So what is cloud? Cloud banking is all about, it's a cloud to store and access data. It's a superior technology, everybody says, for agility, scalability, and even security. Of course, data security is an issue. We'll discuss all these people. It has many, many advantages over the normal, typical IT platform. What are those? Quicker deployment of financial services, lesser expenses in spelling out, a lot of flexibility, in adapting to the market field. As I said, cloud is more than a technology. It is a destination for all banks. It is cheaper, faster, and more elastic alternative to the traditional data storage. Now, what are the factors driving all the bankers to move cloud? You just see that first, of course, customer acquisition and retention, deploying services market to the very, very fast. It makes banks agile and innovative. I understand that it also helps bankers on their regulatory compliance side. Um, and contrary to many believe, it actually cyber crime prevention happens if it's on the cloud. We'll ask our experts. I am not an expert, so I may be raising certain stupid issues, and that's I could get away because I am the moderator. You have to answer the right kind of thing answer. And most importantly, cloud is very cost effective. So you ask any banker, they will give you the traditional difference between the capex and opex. At one time you invest so much, or you continuously make it an operational expenses, that is cloud. So to summarize, cloud symbolizes a bank's speed and agility, lower operations and ownership cost, uh, customers experience is far, far better, and very high security. In fact, people say that the cloud actually is a security threat. That I am told it's a myth. There is no more security threat. And it's not the bankers, it's not the banks, almost every institutions across the globe. If you look at even the Microsoft, billions of dollars they invest in security on cloud. And this is why we are here to discuss all about how important is cloud. Now, there are some banks in India and globally, I understand even developed markets, they have some reluctance to move to the cloud. Primarily, this is the risk associated. One is the regulatory risk, and second is, of course, the data compromise, data being leaked, etc., etc. So this is the background. And as I said, I am a layperson, so I may end up asking some stupid questions, but we are here to hear the experts. We will have a quick rounds, probably 4 rounds. And here I end. I don't need to talk much. I will only step in at the end. So it's all to you guys. I'll just be playing the role of Sutradhar, or for Martin, who understands Sutradhar, intermediation, to give you a clue to talk on. And probably would like to have 3 or 4 rounds, quick rounds on different aspects of cloud. And feel free to make it interesting, bring in anecdotes, bring in real life stories. This is a result season in India, so I'm not deliberately asking you about your own entities, but feel free if you feel. But at the end of the day, we need to tell our audience, hundreds of people are watching you from the tech world and not tech world, from even from various academic institutions. We need to explain to them what it means for the banks, like how benefits the banks, and so that one who wants to invest in banks, they would know what's the worth of the bank and the digital space. And also we need to know what it means for me and you and everybody else as a customer. So let's first, and Martin, you are a sort of knowledge partner here. We will hear from you the global experience and what India can do. So let's first start with Ramesh. If it's okay, I'll call all of you by the first name. Ramesh, HDFC Bank is known for its digital initiatives. Let me put a disclaimer. I have written books on HDFC Bank on your digital journey, but I'll not show any bias in favor of you. So tell us how important is cloud in the entire digital architecture for the Indian banking system?
Amal, excellent question. And a lot of us know you from that perspective, that you've written a very nice book on us. But I think it's also the start point. Your book is probably a start point for what we want to do from here on in that sense. If you look at the banking ecosystem today, and we are very digitized. I mean, banks like us are 92% digitized, 95% digitized. And a lot of banks are digitized, not just HDFC Bank. Right? It's something that you have to live with. And the fact is that it's rapidly progressing. So take an example of UPI, the way it's kind of grown over the last 3-4 years. Take all of the card transactions that have gone completely digital. Acquisition has gone digital. So clearly the digital volumes have just exploded. Right? I mean, 200% over the last 3 years is an unbelievable number. Right? And from that perspective, if you look at it, this cloud is absolutely central to what banks would do over the next 4 to 5 years. It is not just a matter of a hobby, so to say, or something to talk about. It's actually a matter of survival, and that is why in fact, if you look at it, my bank has been pretty much covered, from a technology perspective, and there's a lot of stuff around. How are you guys looking at it? So for us, this is the central pivotal strategy on which we are going to kind of now build our next generation platforms. And why am I saying that? See, 20 years back, the volumes were not there. India was not digitized. But then if you see the revolution of the cloud started, the Amazons, the Microsoft, the Googles were already out there. They were kind of discovering the volumes, and the volumes were clearly not supported in the classical organization. And that's why a lot of them went after cloud. They kind of put a lot of their application in the cloud. Banks, for some reason, kind of were little, I would say, laggard in that. In fact, like you said, a lot of concerns around security, and rightly so, regulator clarity. But then the minute you've got into an escape velocity today. If you do not go on cloud, you will not survive, because the volumes have simply, exploded. And from that perspective, three aspects: reliability, security, and availability. These are three foundational aspects that every bank is built on. The only way this can now take the next level of, I would say, evolution, you have to go on cloud. Of course, there will be different kinds of cloud. Tamal, we can't just put cloud into one bucket, right? There is, hybrid cloud, public cloud, private cloud, and people are doing a lot of their own, discovery on that. And I see this as a logical evolution. You will have multiple models coming in. It will not be a one-fit-all model. A small bank would have a different cloud strategy. A mid-sized bank could have a different cloud strategy, and a large bank would have a very different cloud strategy. So I think foundationally, if you look at it, and I will talk about the benefits from a customer point. We'll go there little later as we kind of get into the next session. But clearly, and most of the banks today are getting into the cloud in a survival mode, I would say. And given that there is a lot, and we have to cover, I would say, next 18 to 24 months, a lot of distance on adopting cloud. But again, one caveat here: cloud doesn't mean you pick up your on-prem and you put it onto the cloud. That is not a workable solution. You have to go back and re-architect. And clearly, what comes out is cloud-native architecture. So you would see a lot of the old school of vendors, old school of technology partners. They have to look at it very differently. In fact, the banks are also looking at new associations, new partnerships, because it's about getting into the new set of technology, and that's clearly going to come out. So the ecosystem around us, the banking technology would also change, and so would the talent that the banks will have to recruit. So if you look at it, the partner ecosystem, the customer ecosystem, the regulatory ecosystem, all of this has to change and shift its mind to move to the next set of thought process in cloud. I'll stop there, but I just kind of gave a little preamble, and then we can.
Yeah. Thanks, Ramesh. This is the introductory thing. So let's. I'll ask Akhil. You will come a little later. Let me sandwich between you and Ramesh the two banks from the private sector. One old private and one new private. So Murli, your turn. Murli from DCB. You are actually a new private bank, pretty as old as HDFC Bank, because a cooperative bank turned into a small into a bank, scheduled commercial bank, 1995. Murli, we don't know much about what you have been doing. So tell us, little demystify. Ramesh spoke about different sets of cloud, how the architecture is evolving. Ramesh also said that there's no choice. All of you need to. There's no more reluctance is acceptable. So Murli, can you tell us preliminary, like where are we, the Indian banking system on cloud, and why do we need to go there?
Yeah, hi Tamal. I think to extend what Ramesh had said, many businesses now across the industries, now the cloud first is the strategy that everybody is looking for. So what does it mean is that when we are talking about any new infrastructure, any new application or platforms, first thing that comes to our mind is is this cloud native? Is this, can I deploy the application, or can I use the infrastructure on the cloud? And why so is, I think we'll have to put it in a slight, little bit of a context of a pandemic that we have been going through for the last 18 months or so. One of the, I think, three key factors that has actually increased the digitization strategy and also the cloud adoption strategy. I guess with the pandemic, three items that comes to everybody's mind is optimization of IT cost and support. And second is in terms of a way and a secure way for a remote workforce, rather to enable the remote workforce. Third is the resilience of the infrastructure, in terms of providing the services. Because especially, I mean, from the beginning of the pandemic, essential services, of course, included the bank and the financial services, is expected to ensure that there is no challenge from a customer, from a customer service perspective, because without the financial industry, there's nothing that could happen in the world. So looking at optimization of cost, remote workforce, and also bringing the resilience, I think what cloud helps us is that to address all this, these key factors at once. So if I look at the way some of the services that we have enabled in our own bank are across different banks. For example, I think Ramesh did mention that there are three items that have come in the industry. One is the customer acquisition. Second is the payment services like an UPI, in terms of while the value of each payment may not be there, but the volume of the transactions have got quadrupled over the years. So the ability to provide to do the customer acquisition over a digitized platform, and bringing the scalability that is required for services like a payment services. I think these are the key items for us to get into a cloud strategy in our own bank. For example, taking the customer acquisition as a use case, the way that we could enable a video KYC services and hence acquire the customer without any need of a contact at the branch, that has really helped our own bank in the COVID scenario, as well as in general, to have that contactless operations and the contactless customer acquisition in the process. So looking at the way things are going on in terms of and also adapting to the pandemic scenario, cloud adoption becomes one of the key items. Rather, it is no more low capital investments that we were thinking a couple of years back. So it is also adding in the sense of one, the reduced time to market. Second is high scalability, and third is the elasticity that it brings in, which is on demand, to provide the reliable and a secure services to the customers. Of course, adding to this whole conversation is the data security and the data integrity part of it. But with the maturity in the cloud, architecture, and also the cloud service providers, whether it is Amazon or whether it is Azure, so the controls that have been built over there will really help us in ensuring that the data integrity as well as the security aspects are getting addressed in those. I think there are options available at each of the service provider in terms of pushing your own policies, and also it is not that we would be doing a lift and shift kind of a strategy where you move all your on-prem applications to the cloud enabled services, because essentially the underlying architecture need to be rebuilt, which can adapt to the cloud deployment models. So I think these are the initial views from my perspective in terms of a cloud adoption.
Thanks, Murli. We'll get into all the micro beats in due course. So let's hear Shankaran. Shankaran is from City Union Bank, old private bank. So tell us, are you cloud reluctant or are you embracing cloud? And what's the scenario? Shankaran, over to you.
Good afternoon to everybody. Sir, we are also just blessing cloud. Thing is, we started our journey 10 years back with respect to cloud adoption. Earlier, just started from manual to just core banking solution, and just earlier the ALPM and integrated systems and core banking solution and the digital strategy. We are facing a lot of problems each and every time. Just customers are also hesitant to adopt, and even our staff members are also hesitant to adopt each and every strategy. But at one stage, in the recent past, we have just come across just lot of digital initiatives. We are also just come across 92% of the alternate transactions gone to alternate channels. Just we are also one of the early adopters of video KYC solution and other things. As far as the cloud is concerned, this is also just a new one. Anyway, order of the day. Anyway, we need to move into public cloud. First, my point is we need to start with the private cloud. As Ramesh is rightly pointed out, it is not at all a fruitful and workable solution. To create this mindset and our employees and as well as our top management, first we need to start from our legacy solution, each and every just box to one single box. Okay, first we need to create confidence level to the employees and as well as our management, just regarding the advantages of cost and easy to use and single box in the sense. Then we need to create the awareness amongst us. Then we need to start one by one. My point is, first we need to start with the customer onboarding and digital marketing, CRM kind of thing, and just video KYC, and these are all the things just we need to implement one by one. Then final stage, we need to compare the CapEx and the OpEx also. At one stage, it is just cost effective also with respect to cloud. I think a lot of disadvantages also in the particular solution way, because we have a rural and semi-urban branches also. At that time, network latency and other things taken care. I think data privacy and regulations and board level policy governance, these are all the things look into. One stage, my point is starting from the legacy to private cloud, then private cloud to public cloud. Public cloud in the sense we need to take care of the security aspects also regarding the encryption, and thing is recent past we are also getting a lot of regulations from Reserve Bank and other things. We need to take care of the PCI DSS and other things. Even whenever we are moving into public cloud regarding the data, data also need to be taken care. Why? Because after complying the PCI DSS, we need to have cardless data and card data also taken care. Whenever we are moving into cloud, public cloud, we need to segregate between the card data and cardless data also taken care. There are a lot of intricacies also we need to look into the particular things. I just end up this session.
Yeah, thanks. No, you don't not end up the session. You just end up your talk. We have a long way to go. We will hear more all the micro level, all the challenges that you spoke about. Akhil, tell us, among the public sector banks in India, Bank of Baroda is one of them, and State Bank is the other. You are sort of vanguard when it comes to embracing digitalization. So we have heard three of them talking about, this private cloud and public cloud and everything else. So can you just bit of demystify, Akhil, what it means and why do banks need to go to the cloud?
Sure. Thanks, Tamalda, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be on the panel right now. Look, if you just go back 5 years and take a look at, the buzzword that had appeared on the scene, which is cloud, and along with it, there were a range of others, and private, public, hybrid is something that you mentioned. There were others as well. So SaaS came on, then the infrastructure as a service, banking as a service, platform as a service. So a range of buzzwords came in, acronyms, useful ones, I must add. And there was a need to demystify much of them. There was a learning curve for all of us. And I think over the last 5 years, many of us have moved incremental workloads over to the cloud and tested out a bit of strategies and our own assertions that we started out with. Now, 5 years back, there was a real career risk in moving many of your core workloads over to the cloud. Much of it now has probably been mitigated in a variety of ways. One, there have been some rules, guidelines that have been formed, so it's not operating in gray, in isolation, including data residency, privacy, etc. The second is there has been a demonstration effect in terms of a better experience, both at the customer's end and as well as the employees and staff members who are using internal applications which have now been deployed on cloud. So that demonstrable effect has been very strong in terms of an uplift in the experience. And the third is, this huge exigency that Ramesh talked about earlier, which is the increasing and rather exploding volumes that we see in many of the areas, and of course payments is one particular area that everybody has had to sharply focus on, and there are a range of others as well. But if I just contextualize the size of the problem, payments today is about 15 crore daily digital transactions, of which about 9 crore are UPI. And at some point, this will turn to one transaction per person per day. So we're really talking about a 10 times, from 15 crore to probably about 100 to 120 crore kind of a daily transaction volume. And if we are to look at this 10 times increase, and if we have to satisfy this volume, there's no choice we have but to fundamentally re-architect many of the solutions, and B, move incremental amounts of workloads over to the cloud. The choices, of course, are a private cloud, a hybrid cloud, or a public cloud. I think there are pros and cons of each of these. Every institution has its own strategy around it. For us, we have been open to public clouds for much of our non-customer data applications, rather internal applications, so our communication platforms, our emailing systems, our video conference applications. So we've been okay moving them over to public cloud, and truly, I mean, the kind of scalability and adoption that I've seen, for example, of a Microsoft Teams, and driven by pandemic, moving it all the way from almost negligible usage to 80,000 users over a period of a month, has been incredible. I don't think an on-prem solution could have been scaled to that effect in such a short order of time, especially during the pandemic. So there's a very real demonstration effect that we have now, and basis that, I think we can all build on top of it.
Yeah, thanks, Akhil. I think that's the other side of the pandemic story. Is this one of the areas which have been getting much bigger thrust during this time is digitalization, and of course cloud, because now you talk to any bank, they will say that anywhere between 85 and 95% of all transactions are off branches, which was not the case. I think only one bank was there 2 years back to claim that, and others used to talk about 70, 75, and then much lower. But now, whether it's public or private, every bank claims, and rightly so, between 85 and 95% transaction. Martin, it's your turn now. Tell us why would banks, because you have a vested interest, you help banks to de-risk and all. So you are an outsider, insider in that sense. Why would banks need to migrate to cloud? What are the benefits one gets?
Well, thank you for inviting me for this panel. It's a pleasure to be sharing this panel with all of you. To your question, well, there's a number of benefits, and I mean, some of them were already mentioned by the other panelists. The scalability, the elasticity are key aspects of that. I mean, just to focus a little bit on the risk management area, which is my focus.
Yes.
You see that many of the risk management processes tend to happen either at the end of the month, for example, or the end of the quarter, etc., which means that banks need to have a very robust infrastructure and a very capable infrastructure to support that those peak utilizations. Whereas in the other moments, let's say the rest of the months or the rest of the quarter, depending on the type of application, the infrastructure might not be used at the same level. On the other hand, the recent changes and the constant changes on the market, pandemic and regulatory changes, etc., all those market, let's say, forces are pushing the risk management departments to do a lot of ad hoc analysis and do simulations to understand how the bank would react in certain scenarios, so on and so forth. So again, there are new peaks that you cannot exactly predict. Like might not be exactly at the end of the month, might be in a different moment in time, might be concurrent with those other peaks. And so the elasticity of cloud, for example, the ability to request resources for short periods of time and get those resources available, it's key to make those processes efficient and fundamentally to give banks the capacity to react to market changes very quickly and make analysis on those impacts from the market.
Okay, thanks, Martin. So essentially what you are saying that it's a continuous process. You don't need to a specific period to get into data analysis and risk analysis. If you're on cloud, it's been doing continuously. That flexibility and that agility, that's the biggest risk mitigating factor.
If you compare with the previous story, let's say before cloud, what happened in many of my customers is that they have to invest in an infrastructure, and they obviously need to invest on that infrastructure to be capable of reacting to the peak, right? Okay. So big infrastructure that is there sitting, sometimes a bit idle for a lot of time, to be ready when is needed, right? With cloud, they don't have to do that. They can go on request for use, meaning they can even go in models like pay per use. I pay the storage, I pay the processing units when I need it, right? So I can get that kind of flexibility and elasticity from my cloud providers.
Thanks, Martin. So we are always, the banks are ever ready. So thanks, Martin. Now that brings us to the end of the first round. We plan to have a few more rounds, so we need to have a little quicker one. Meanwhile, the questions are pouring. We need to pick up at least a few questions if they're not addressed. So let's have it quickly. All of you have touched upon the challenges, right from the employee challenge to make them understand, to cost, to regulatory, etc. In this round, we'll ask each of you to start about what are the challenges in Indian context. Probably I'll reverse the flow. We'll start with Akhil. And let's do this like whatever Akhil A says, B will not repeat and look for new challenges. So Akhil, it's your turn first. Tell us what are the challenges in this migration to cloud.
I'll keep it very simple and quick. And I think the biggest challenge is still being able to have 100% confidence that my customer data will be secure, and that is something that as an organization, it takes time. See, and banks specifically, we are nothing but repositories of trust. And one good thing that the Indian regulation has done is, rather RBI rules have done, is that there is now stringent data residency that helps. So both the DC and the DR of the cloud provider have to be within the territorial boundaries of the country. But beyond that, will there be a risk related to the data leakage? We are not 100% there yet, and I think there have been recent instances of outages and leakages, which kind of do not while you're on your path, to get there, and the horses have left the stable, but we've not reached the destination yet on that one.
So it's a data security. That's the most critical part that you're saying. And you use the term called data residency, which essentially what you are saying is this: any data in India for Indian customers need to be stored in India alone, right? Right now, I think as we speak, in the recent past, our regulator has come heavily on two payments. I mean the credit card issuer in that. Because of this, I think the data residency issue, right? It's RBI has not said that, but probably this is the issue, data residency issue. That's why they have been asked not to issue any fresh card till it's sorted out. So that's one aspect. I think Shankaran, what are the key challenges you face when you embrace cloud?
Yes, sir. Main key challenges in the sense of data localization. Each and every time, as RBI keep on insisting us to give the regulations. Last month also we got the regulation. Every 6 months we need to send it across the data to Reserve Bank of India, stating that across all the aggregators, they need to comply the server in India only. Same thing is Visa and the Masters already they got the permission. Then this is one of the just main threats. Then second thing, just we got some little bit confusion just between the on-prem and as well as cloud. Why? Because on-prem in the sense we are having most comfort with respect to our employees to whom just they are accessing, in which database they are also accessing and other things. But in this case, cloud, wherever whoever it may be, where the server has, who is operating person and other things, where our data has. These are all the complex scenarios inbuilt in the system. As Achilles rightly pointed out, customer data is very much important. As apart from PII, other just data like CRM in the sense and video surveillance. Some of the test environment are also just put it in on-premises cloud. It is our just very much comfort, sir. Then apart from this, some network latency and the performance issues also, how we are going to address and other things, the major bottleneck for us, sir.
Yeah, so again, the localization of data, that's very important, and you are also adding that to the Reserve Bank of India is insistent on certain issues and all. So let's hear two more person. Murli, your take. Don't repeat what have already been said. Tell us about the newer challenges that you are seeing.
Well, I think apart from the data, the other two key aspects or key challenges that I see is in terms of an application portability, because many of the banks have, it's not that we have digitized, rather we have computerized the systems recently, right? There are many native applications and local applications. We need to have create a strategy in terms of either how to make those applications cloud compatible and then have them migrated, or create devise a different approach or a strategy for those specific things. I think the other item is the privileged access management. Shankaran touched upon briefly on it. Primarily talks about in terms of your information security and who is really managing those servers and that the physical metadata or meta systems on it. So I think those are the two other key aspects that one had to look into when devising the strategy to in moving to cloud.
Ramesh, your turn.
No,
so tell us
I have a different.
Yeah, please, Ramesh, tell us the challenges also, and then how do you face the challenges? How do you actually, manage those stuff?
Yeah. So Tamalda, I have a little, a different view on the challenges. I think the biggest challenge that is kind of, facing us is the talent pool. I don't think it is so much about other things, because I think a cloud talent is very, very different. The talent comes from very different pool. Banks have never been used to this kind of talent pool. People come from fintech sector. They understand Kubernetes. They understand service mesh. They understand canary deployment. These are terminologies that banking world hasn't seen for very long. And just attracting that talent and giving them the ability to to come in and then design the systems, like Murli said, cloud compatibility. It's a very tough challenge to make. You just pulling this servers and putting into cloud will not help. Then all the issues that Shankaran spoke about, latency, privileged, all of that stuff will come in. So we need very good design architecture, depth in being able to move to the cloud and attract the talent. And this we are competing today, Tamilda, with people, with Amazon's, Flipkarts of the world. And this talent doesn't want to come into a bank and then get into an enterprise legacy thought process. Okay, where there is hundreds of approvals, there are too many people to deal with. All of that stuff. They're not there. They work in a very different startup mode. So creating this environment for especially for the CIO digital leadership is going to be very key. How do you attract this talent? Right. So that is one part. Second is, having done that, you have to also use principles of the cloud. So which is the challenge that I see. So take the example today. One of the biggest problems with the bank's current architecture is change management. You put some change onto a core banking and that change is not done properly, the system collapses. Your ability to roll back is very, very, very poor. It takes time, and by the time, and today people are very savvy, they get onto social media, a regulator is focusing on you. How do you overcome this? This can only be overcome when you look at some of the foundational principles. Take a simple example. In cloud, we have something called canary deployment. What does canary deployment mean? You can, in the same environment, you can have, it's a very interesting term, and I just thought I'll make it a little lighter session. So this canary term comes from, the small bird which used to be let into the tunnels, in US, and they were kind of looking for gold and stuff like that. This bird will go, and if the bird comes back, it will, alive, which means you can go inside the tunnel, and it will go every 10-meter distance. So what you do, you incrementally kind of introduce changes. Okay, the same concept is available in cloud today. It's called canary deployment, green-blue deployment, and so on, so much terminology. But what you're doing here, if you don't build the cloud in a way that you put your change today, and that change can go into 10% of your infrastructure, 90% of your infrastructure is old code. And then you make 10, 20%, 20, 30. So you give time for the servers to manage the change. If something goes wrong, you can quickly roll back. This kind of active, very important, Kamal, that today my data should not just hit Mumbai data center, but if I have Bangalore data center, it should be online, hitting both the servers, and data should be replicated on both sides. Not easy. Cloud will provide you that technology, but to put these technologies onto the cloud, you need talent, and this talent will need to completely rediscover itself, because the old banking partner ecosystem doesn't understand. So today, if I go to the large core banking, they will continue to do their core banking because that's what works for them. So just to pull them out and put a new core banking system, not going to be easy. So these are challenges that are there. So I think talent, design skills, and architecture are very, very key, challenges if I look at it. How are we overcoming, like you asked? It's a very, it's a different kind of a reboot. Like I said, we are actually first trying to get the talent problem addressed. So we are changing our kind of pitch of attracting talent and what kind of talent we want. So I'm starting from that. So first you go back, rediscover, how do we get people who have worked on cloud for the last 10 years to come into banks and work with us? Once you have started to solve for that problem, I think the other things will start falling in place. So that's the start point. Then of course, partnerships, new set of partnerships, new set of design skills coming in. So we are putting up a factory concept, Tamalda. So we are kind of saying, while our enterprise technology continues to function and support the client, we also need a factory which is parallel, which is kind of started to look at these new technologies right from the inception point of view. And you're kind of doing this as a parallel kind of stuff. And then over a period of time, both these units would start kind of merge at scale. That's how we're looking at this. So it's an interesting journey. It will take time. So.
Thanks, Ramesh. I think all of you, in your own way, give us, in your own way, if I may say, fell the elephant, gave us different perspective. And when bank is changing and bank is becoming a marketplace, then these challenges are very real. So let's hear, Martin, you tell us how globally other banks, how they are managing their cloud strategy, which Ramesh says that it's so difficult to acquire talent, which Akhil gave some other aspect. Shankaran and Murli, they also spoke about, it's only not the regulatory issues, not the purity of data or the threat of data leakage. There are certain issues of how to synergize with our old architecture, how to attract talent, so on and so forth. You spoke, Martin, in the first phase that how agile is this? You don't need to wait for the month end or particularly period. All your risk mitigation is doing on real time. But tell us these challenges, how the global banks face them.
Well, these are definitely very important challenges, and all banks are facing. I mean, the talent acquisition and building that talent inside the bank and making sure that you partner with the right vendor to take advantage of. These are key, let's say, success factors for a proper cloud usage. There's a big effort also coming from the cloud providers. So, for example, today you have a lot of access to training, to virtual training, to more one-to-one coaching, etc., from the traditional cloud providers to try to mitigate that talent shortage. But it's still there. It doesn't mean that it mitigates totally. Obviously, the shortage is still there. Now, obviously, some banks, because they are bigger, because they operate in more, let's say, interesting markets, if you like, they have the ability to attract talent more easily. But obviously some other banks that operate in less attractive economical environments, for example, they struggle a bit to attract that talent, and they have to rely more on building the talent themselves. So, for example, partnerships with universities, it's a key aspect. Partnerships with proper vendors that it can provide some of their talent, are key to that process, right? Now, one aspect that I would like to highlight, and it's probably interesting to understand the view of the panel, is that many banks I see, they understand that the journey and the final objective is the cloud native, meaning really deploy on the cloud environment that has the scalability, the Kubernetes, the elasticity, that has the change management, really the pipelines for change manager really operating, so you can actually make sure that every change gets quickly to production, but also goes through a detailed process in terms of quality assurance. So, you can roll back and all that. So obviously change management, although it's not exactly, let's say, it's not exactly a cloud question, is definitely a question of today, and for the agility that the banks need nowadays. But what I see is that many banks are taking advantage of the lift and shift, meaning although they recognize the need to make sure that the end point of the journey is cloud native, they are already trying to take advantage of the cloud by going on this, what I call the lift and shift, meaning just taking the applications that they have on premises today to the cloud. It will not have the right elasticity. It will not have some of the benefits of cloud, but it can still be economically interesting in terms of business model, in terms of economic model, can already be interesting, that an idea of lift and shift, and could be a step towards and a way to get the bank in a position and then in understanding of the challenges that they will be facing and getting to, let's say, start with the journey.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Martin. So yeah, Martin, actually you have provided me with the third round question. You are saying that what is the ideal way? Is it lift and shift, which some of the banks are doing, or is it change management? Ramesh also spoke about, without using the term change management, he did say that there actually is a factory approach. So now I would like each of you, probably Shankar, you will start there. Do you see, to get the best value from cloud, do you need to go through a cultural change? You call it, instead of calling it change management, I'm just rephrasing it. Do you think each of the bank, which to get the best value of cloud, you need to, what Ramesh discussed, that how critical is the talent pool? Now, can is actually be outsourced, and then how do you manage your internal, the people who are already there? If the new guys are coming in, do you need to give them a different kind of or the kid globe approach because they are very special? Then how do you manage the entire thing? So to get the best value of cloud, this migration, is change management or a cultural change required in bank? Shankaran, you first. You are on mute, huh? Yeah.
Yes, sir. So anyway, order of the day, we need to go with public cloud. Anyway, as already we discussed, at the time whenever we were issuing the card, people are just accepting the hesitate to accept the card at the time in 2004 and 5. Even our branch managers are also hesitate to give the card to the customer. They are also just win-win situation. Then at one stage, even as and when the account is opened, immediately customer immediately used to adopt the card and as well as internet banking, mobile banking. The same strategy replicated to cloud also. At the time, we start to hesitate the virtualization and other things. Who is virtualization? Which companies offered and other things? We started KVM and the VMware, and just lot of things came into picture. At present, just we're very much comfortable, and our employees also very much comfortable. But one more thing, as Ramesh is rightly pointed out, talent pool is again we are also facing problem. Then again, trust, talent pool and trust. Okay, this guy regarding the just change management control also again. RBI is also keep on insisting who is a change, who has given the permission, whether you have any board approved policy or something like that. These are all the things. Anyway, we need to take care. Again, Akhil rightly pointed out with respect to BCP, DR strategy also we need to take care. To overcome this issue, anyway, at one stage, as Sari said, we need to go with the public cloud, sir.
Akhil, say Bank of Baroda is probably an example of doing sort of, if I may say so, change management, even though you are a public sector bank under your previous CEO, and now that trend continues. You have tried being a public sector bank, but you have been trying to do things very differently, particularly when it comes to digitization. So tell us how important is the cultural change required to embrace and get the best out of cloud?
Oh, Kamalda, I think you hit the nail on the head. If there's one thing that is required in generous doses, it is cultural change. And the cultures that we operate in, used to operate in, still operate in at many layers and levels, is grounded in a certain way of functioning. And there is a huge amount of resistance to change. And also largely because, look, at the end of the day, banks are all about risk mitigation, right? And change and dramatically turning a leaf are antithesis to that kind of a mindset. So rightfully so, there are very steady ways of doing things, and bankers like to continue to operate in those, but no longer can we afford to operate in those. Now we've arrived at the I would say there's a new dawn in which things have to rapidly move. And I think, as you said in your opening comments, if we do not move fast and we do not catch up, we will get left behind. And it's not a question of we will or we will not, we will certainly. It's just a question of how fast are we going to get left behind. And in many ways, if you look around, that is what is happening also in the industry. Those of us who have not been able to run these large digital transformation projects effectively, absorb the right amount of talent, have the change makers brought in at the right level, right position, and really agitate the system. Those organizations are getting left behind, and it is no longer a figment of imagination, but that is something that you see in real numbers that are happening across the industry. And the larger the organization, um, uh, the more the legacy it has. We are a 113-year-old organization, and pretty much everything from from, of course, the pre-core days and paper-based days. Uh, we have seen it all. So there is an element of getting people to adapt. People have institutional memories. There are people that serve the bank for 40 long years, and it's not easy for those executives to change their thinking, right? So we have to be sympathetic to that thought, but at the same time, I think we need to have these very strong change makers who continuously agitate the system.
Okay, thanks. It's a HR challenge, Akhil. That's what you're saying. Murli, your take.
See, I think the one view that I just wanted to put it up is banking or a financial industry as a industry. I think it is on a very high continuum change. That we are seeing in the recent past. I mean, there are marketplaces that are getting created, especially in the areas of the payment related. I mean, we all know what kind of a disruption IMPS and UPI has brought into the payment system, or the payments ecosystem, right? The number of transactions that are actually getting from the initiated at a branch against outside the bank, it is incomparable. So I think, and we're all adapting to those changes. And as Akhil rightly mentioned, it's only it is only accelerated if you are not able to catch the train, rather if you are not able to change, rather accept to the change and adapt to the change. Very soon you'll be left out in the whole game. I think cloud also is in similar situation. Point is that there is no one specific strategy that every one of us can follow it. I think one has to evaluate the ecosystem that the specific industry or an organization is operating in, and I think there are different strategies and processes that we can adopt. But at the same time, change has to be accelerated in terms of an adoption. That's an item that we'll have to be clearly focused and devised for that particular organization.
Okay, yeah, Ramesh, you are the last speaker. I think change management, you guys have already done it under Mr. Puri's leadership. We have done, but it's a continuous process. You tell us.
It's changing. It's changing quite a lot because, like you said, it's not really. I mean, while it's an HR problem, like you said, but I think one of the biggest problem that I see is today the evolution of technology concepts and the understanding of that at the senior management level. I think it's a very fundamental shift that's happened. Today, a CEO has to know what microservices is all about. The CEO has to understand how a cloud structure works, or why is it effective to get onto cloud. I mean, he cannot be saying that this is a technology matter. It's something that the CIOs would do. So I think the entire top management, and that same thing applies to the business heads today. I mean, a retail assets head has to know why is it more efficient to run a loan origination system on cloud, and why the algorithms on machine learning will be far better and far more efficient that to lend better. And if it doesn't understand, it's not going to help out, right? So it's a fundamentally, I think this whole concept would kind of permeate across the leadership team. So I think one of the key elements, and like we are now at least discovering the amount of time that our top leadership is spending on understanding these concepts. And I mean, I can tell you, I've spent almost hours and hours. Every week I spend 2 hours with my CEO just on concepts. There is nothing else. There's no business discussion. There is no other discussion, just about concepts. And that helps them, because it's just kind of, making that change come faster, because they understand. And when they go back and interact with their ecosystem, stakeholders, they're much more comfortable, right? So that's one way of the change management. The other thing you brought about is very critical. Like you said, the existing set of people, while you can get people from outside, but, people have spent, like Akhil said, 30, 40 years, they've given their life to their banks, and they add value huge. So you can't just say, no, I'm like a cowboy, I'll try and get somebody from outside and, things. No. I think it's all about also ensuring this particular team also gets very well connected with the cloud ecosystem. So what we have done is a very interesting concept, the change management. Is one, I'm consciously kind of doing job rotations on both sides. So people who've kind of taken up roles which are take a network guy. I mean, security on network management on cloud is extremely different from the network management and traditional stuff. But if I don't put this person out there, let him be in the water. I mean, couple of months he will struggle through, and there is a partner ecosystem to help out. There are training materials, there is certification courses, and they want to do it. In fact, today, if you see most of the legacy, network administrators, I see all the time going onto LinkedIn saying, I'm AWS certified, I'm GCP certified. And that's the kind of stuff they're also willing to do. But we'll have to show that positive path of saying how the existing teams can also get reskilled. So that's why it's a fascinating change management, pivot that and the CIOs play, I would say, the central role out here, and they can't just say that my role is to bring technology. I think that's there, but it's also about how do you orchestrate the change into the organization. So it's
thanks, Ramesh. It's a fascinating story. Let's hear Martin. Martin, can you give us some of the global examples, if it's possible, without breaching any confidentiality clause? How do the banks globally in US and Europe, they manage all these issues of change management, cultural changes? Is it like people get fired, those who are not able to change themselves, or how does it work? Or they outsource, or what? Give us what are from the global experience, what the Indian banks can learn.
Yeah. So the first comment I would like to make on that is that the leading banks in US and Europe have established what they call cloud-first strategy, meaning any decision on applications or any decision related with IT services, etc., needs to be considered first in cloud. And only if there is no alternative in cloud, then they could consider on-premises or the other options. But first and foremost, everything that happens from now on should be cloud first. And this is becoming a complete, let's say, across the board. The second aspect is that they in some aspects are, let's say, using more the called internal cloud, meaning agreements with cloud providers, but having the private cloud, meaning so they take advantage of external providers for services and for infrastructure, etc. But it's still in terms of environment, in terms of security, it's still inside their let's say ecosystem, right? So they don't like to use the public cloud per se, right? Typically, the public cloud is more used by smaller banks that have less, let's say, capacity to organize these private clouds environments. Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the way they manage the talent shortage and the knowledge, they work in two axes. One, as it was already referred, they train the internal people. Just to give you an example, it's not the bank, but it's my own example. I established as an objective of last year that all my team had to go through Cloud Academy and will have to get a certificate that they know the basics of cloud, independently of the role. They might be risk modelers, they might be ALM experts, or I mean, it doesn't matter. There might be business, there might be IT. Everyone needs to have a basic understanding of what is cloud and be able to speak about it. And this is what the banks are also doing. I mean, it's like making that objective, agreeing that objective with HR, and making sure that everyone has at least the basic level of knowledge about cloud. On the other side is partnering. So partnering with companies that can provide those services and services related to managing cloud or to advise on cloud strategies and plans to cloud, in order to, let's say, accelerate the process as well. Now, one key aspect is that the cloud is something that you cannot identify as a trend on US or Europe. I mean, last year I closed. I mean, the majority of the business I closed last year was with including cloud. And I had customers closing those business with me from Brazil, from New Zealand, from Malaysia, and I mean, obviously from US and Europe as well. But just to give you an example, that it is ubiquitous. I mean, it's not the trend that you can say it's the modern world or the old world. I mean, it's completely across the business.
Okay. Thanks, Martin. We have actually exceeded our time by 5-6 minutes. So with the permission of the panel and the audience, we'll just go by another 5-6 minutes before the end. So I have one last very quick question, but before that, it'll be unfair if we don't take a few questions. There are many questions my colleague from Business Standards, Sachin Mampata, has been supplying. So let's have one or two. Let's pick up. Yeah, there's a question for you, Akhil. This question is not meant for you, but I am asking you the question. In fact, none of the questions are meant for any person, but I'm just generally random asking. How secure is the use of public cloud? Because you're a public sector bank, that's why I'm asking you. Like, is there anything, any regulatory issue or within the board level thing that you have to use public cloud? So how secure is it? Could there be a common cloud platform with information which can be used by all banks for credit decisions? Nikhil.
Well, these are two very different questions.
Yes. There are two different questions, but yeah, quickly too, if you can answer. Yeah.
So look, to the first question, I think, at least in our experience, and we have moved substantial workloads over to the public cloud. We use the Office 365 suite, and many other applications are deployed. There's been zero incidents up till now. So so far, our experience has been pretty good, and which is the reason, as I talked about earlier, there is a demonstration effect, and we keep on moving incremental workloads to the public cloud. There is obviously a strategy that we have to move to hybrid cloud for more sensitive applications, and that's the way we'll go for. Now, the second question was around you said a common loan origination system.
Yeah, no, it says that because it's a common platform, so, and meaning one cloud is used by multiple banks, so can there be a possibility of credit decisions being done collectively?
I actually don't think they are interrelated to that extent.
Okay.
Perhaps perhaps the question was around if the question is around banks coming together and doing a collective. Look, there are many ways of sharing data, right? And what we're talking about is data pooling, data sharing. This needs an organizational setup. This needs a structure, and in many there are many initiatives currently underway in the industry that are looking at it. And it's not the first time we've done it. In the past there have been done rather half-hearted attempts, but from what I know, there are quite a few initiatives going on which will become fairly useful going forward for the industry. In terms of the cloud infrastructure being used, I mean, that is by definition, that is what a public cloud does. There are obviously, other implications around being able to partition and mark your territory within the public cloud infrastructure as well, and that is something which is very possible today. And again, as an organization, that is something that we prefer.
Okay, a related question, Ramesh. Let me ask you. It says that cloud services is more cost effective. It's a shared resources, but because it's a shared resources, that can there be a single point failure for multiple banks?
I think it's an excellent question. I think one fundamental myth is that if you go to cloud, resilience will come in. It's not a myth. There is some amount of reality in it, but it will not come by default. Okay, you need to design for it. Okay, so take an example like Akhil spoke about hybrid clouds today. You can create what is called as virtual private cloud instances within the public cloud, so you can create your own zones. Okay, but today, the way the construction is that those zones have to be replicated. So, for example, an AWS would tell you that I have a 3-zone architecture in Mumbai, but that doesn't mean everything in one center in one part of the Mumbai, something in New Bombay. But what happens if the city goes down? You still have to move to a Hyderabad AWS. So fundamentally, the design principles don't change. Okay, I just want to again come back. You have to look at your design principle. Cloud will tell you, to replicate the data, we have tools and technologies that can do faster than what you would have done on your own. So that is the fundamental difference. So the ability to put these applications and make them resilient is far easier on cloud and far cheaper. So if take an example in the classical world, you put a data center and you have to put a DR with full infrastructure. In cloud, you can choose, okay, my production is 100, my DR is 20% as an example. And if something happens within 5 minutes, I can make that 20%, 100% because the elasticity is available to. This kind of construction you could do on cloud. So that's the advantage that cloud has.
Okay, that's the agility and the flexibility. Many more questions, but let's pick up 2 quick so that we have 1 question each for each of you. Shankaran, to what extent the cloud provider is liable in case of data breach and leaks?
So we need to, nobody has to liable, sir. If any crisis come, okay, all are just turn the finger, as we have seen.
Okay.
As a normal person, as a just common man, we need to just adhere the robust SLA. Okay, what are all the just intricacies inbuilt in the system and other things. Okay, nobody has to take the ownership and other things. If anything gone lost or something like that, as a CIO, just we need to take the responsibility to need the just bridge between the top management and as well as the regulations also.
It's a related question. If you have answered it, it may not. I may not repeat it, but still, I'm taking a chance. Murli, it says that in case of there's a data leakage and financial losses a bank's facing, does the data provider compensate you for that?
I think
is there any instance? Yeah.
But it goes by the contractual agreement that you sign on. I mean, it is nothing specific to cloud per se, and I guess even if you are buying a core banking product or any other internet banking product and you deploy it on-prem, still there is a limitation of liability that goes on any of the challenges that the application would possibly bring in inherently, which are not known. So I think it goes by in terms of your own maturity in looking at how are you creating your own contracts when you're getting into a partnership. Second, you also need to see what kind of a data are you putting onto the system, onto the cloud, right? So I think these two would go hand in hand, and that is how your liability gets created.
So it depends on the individual contract. Anyway,
exactly.
Thank you, gentlemen. I just have one round, one sentence each, and I'll start with Martin. Martin, we all discuss what are the challenges and opportunities for the banking system. we also found out that this migration is no more is an option. There is no choice. It's the destiny. Everybody has to go for multiple reasons: agility, flexibility, etc., etc. But tell us, Martin, for a customer, how my life changes when my bank goes fully on cloud. And starting with you, I'll ask each of you maybe one sentence. Can you tell us? What does it mean for a bank customer?
For the bank customer, the impact is relatively low. I mean, obviously, the big impact is the digitalization of the bank, and that can be achieved even without cloud. But what is emerging on the back of the opportunity in cloud is some more collaboration between the financial institutions. So more data sharing, more collaboration also in processes. Then that can benefit a long term will benefit the customer. That capacity, that because now the systems are more open, if you like. Open, I mean, don't mix with the security, but my point is it's more interconnected. We can interconnect better some of the systems. We can actually take advantage of those possible new interconnections, and that in the long term will benefit the customer.
Okay, thanks. Akhil, what does it mean for me as a customer?
No, I think, look, as Martin said, if you just purely look at the infra layer, probably, we can deliver the same experience. But if you merge the infra and services layer, then the world of possibility opens up. And that is where, you're looking at rapid innovation, deployment, a lot of interesting use cases that you can build in, use artificial intelligence built in to deliver a real innovative set of products and services. And I think these are the future. We will get to an AI first paradigm as well. We are currently day 0, day 1, baby steps towards it. Just one thing, Tamalda, I wanted to touch upon, which we actually haven't talked about earlier, is while we talk about cloud and the on-prem infrastructure, I want to make a comment that there is not nearly adequate on-prem infrastructure providers available in the country.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to put in, a few key filters around experience, scale, etc., you won't find as much capacity in the country today. So it's actually rather a choice, not no more a choice as well.
Oh, Murli?
Yeah. So I think with the increase in from an end customer or end user, I think there are two things that comes into the financial industry. One is increase in use of mobility services, rather mobility, applications in the mobility. Second is collaboration. I think the financial industry, as I was telling in the earlier conversation, that there are different marketplaces that are getting created, both in terms of your customer onboarding, payments, any other, and the new thing that is coming out is account aggregators. So there is increased collaboration, and that is where end customer will be able to get a larger set of services, even for a small, from a smaller bank, because it's not that a bank need to create or institute need to create every services on their own. So these are available on the cloud and adapting to that, and that's where the end customer gets benefited, in my opinion.
Yeah, bank is becoming a marketplace. Yeah. Shankaran?
Sir, there will be no impact on. Yes, sir. There will be no impact on customer side. Just before doing any migration, we will give some proper alert message to come. Without disturbance, without doing any disturbance, we will be in a position to implement the things on the way.
Okay. Ramesh, the last word is yours.
I think there are latent benefits. I would call this as latent benefits. Clearly, I see, for example, data as a huge opportunity area. The kind of sophistication that you can bring in by running, sophisticated models on cloud, doing that on-prem is possible. But the time that it will take to create those kind of infrastructure, similarly, availability of systems, resiliency, security. I do think as we go along, the security in the cloud is going to be far more tighter. I mean, I know it's a topic that we debated quite a lot today, I also think that the collective wisdom and the collective mindset of human race would come together. In that sense, cloud provides that opportunity, right? And I think over a period of time, cloud will also become more secure. So, see, these are some of the latent benefits, but the fundamental principles, as I said, would not change from a client. It all depends on how the individual institution adopts and implements and kind of makes that customer benefit out of it.
Thanks, Ramesh. Thanks, Ramesh, Akhil, Shankaran, Murli, and last but not the least, Martin. That brings us into the third episode of Business Standards, 5-part series, de-risking the risk business. On the first episode, we discussed the impact of COVID and how the banking system, does it have the right kind of resilience to tackle it? The second episode, largely we discussed about artificial intelligence and machine learning, how banks are changing. And today, the third episode and the last for the banking, what we have discussed is a little technical stuff, cloud. But I guess it has, thanks for all your spontaneity. It did not become boring, I guess. We could have gone on another 10, 15 minutes. So what are the key takeaways? Everybody, the entire world knows that India is a place, what is happening in the payment space. Globally, the most happening place in the payments. That's all we know. But we didn't know as much as what's happening even at the backyard of the banking system. Everybody is embracing cloud. Things are changing, culturally changing. All banks are looking for change management. And what Ramesh is now, that raises a different question, that do we need only the bankers to run the banks, or do we need, we'll see that probably 3 CEOs in a bank, 1 technology person, one banker, and 1 FMCG to sell stuff. But that's a separate story. I wish we had a HR person also on the panel to talk about change management and cultural change. But talking about change is the constant thing for the banking industry to remain relevant. And Martin, from Portugal, you must be seeing Indian banks are changing, are ready to change themselves. They are making the banks a marketplace. Thank you all. Thanks from my side. Monish, over to you.
Thank you, Tamal. And many thanks to all the panelists for this insightful discussion, a backstage view on the digital banking revolution that's coming in India, as Tamal was saying. Thank you, SAS, for partnering with us. And of course, thanks to everyone watching this. When Business Standard and SAS joined hands to curate this series of webinars, we hope most of the risk management professionals in BFSI will watch them. And so far, the thousands of you who have seen these sessions are a confirmation of that. So thank you. Our next session is on the insurance sector next Wednesday. That's on your screen now. The last webinar is again on insurance on 11th May, same time, 4 o'clock. We hope to see you for these. That's all from us today. Please stay safe.